This is Total Information AM on 104.1 FM KMOX. I'm Megan Lynch. Many of us are pretty well connected in our digital lives, yet surveys show high rates of loneliness, stress, and depression, especially among young people. How do we create true connections with other human beings? Best-selling author Mimi Nicklin has a new book, The Connection Prescription.
I think that often fear is our greatest enemy, Megan, particularly when it comes to understanding others. But the reality is, if we don't step into that discomfort, we're never going to discover what's on the other side of it. And to fear the connection, to stay away from it, like you said, to hide behind my digital screen or my own comfort zone, is what's fueling so much of this disconnection crisis. So, yes, I do hear it a lot. And what I would say is that the only way to overcome disconnection, to overcome loneliness, is to step out and solve that for yourself. No one else can fix it other than you. And I always say to my team that nothing exceptional ever came from a comfort zone.
Are we blaming tech too much instead of looking at ourselves in this?
I believe so, yes. I think it's very easy to blame the technology. Of course, it rids us of some of the responsibility. We don't like to take responsibility ourselves. But we can't blame the platforms. So many of these problems are fueled by behavior. The behavior to find confidence, as you said, behind a screen, to not listen, to reply without understanding. Those are human behaviors. Technology is fundamentally the platform that's enabling that. But the change we need to see to reconnect our societies and our world sits with us.
Are there things that we are experiencing in this digital world on social media that are reinforcing unhealthy things, like having a bunch of likes for something you do? You know, is that kind of rewiring how we connect?
I think it is. I think in many ways, because we've confused often visibility with actual connection. So, you know, we're constantly in touch, like you say, we're looking for likes, we're looking for engagement, but we're not actually understood. And in that gap is where loneliness grows, where disconnection grows, because as human beings, we are born, it's evolutionary for us, to be understood. So whilst we may like the likes, right, the dopamine hit of feeling like somebody enjoyed my photo or my video, human beings don't actually need more of that shallow interaction. What we need is meaningful connection where we feel seen and heard and recognized. And I think, Megan, people are beginning to realize that now, but certainly to your point, we have become very accustomed to chasing the visibility instead of that connection that we really need.
Why is it that people are feeling more alone? I think a lot of people want to blame this on the pandemic, but is that really when it started?
I think no. I think that the pandemic brought these conversations to the fore. So for the first time, we really had to sit back and look at what it meant to be in connection, or the opposite of that, to be alone. But this disconnection crisis, this empathy deficit, which I get up every day to travel the world and try and overcome, has been going on for 30 years. So the need for social cohesion, what we call social well-being, is just in a frame and a time that yet people haven't really realized what this means. But this has nothing to do with the pandemic. All the pandemic did in this space was fast forward the conversation, bring the conversation out into the whole and into the world. But no, the disconnection has been growing for over 30 years, which is why it's so deep.
So when we talk about empathy, how in the world do we start to redevelop that, not only within ourselves, but in our society?
I think the first step, Megan, is to ensure that people know what it is, because often empathy is confused with things like sympathy or compassion. Empathy is the ability to take the perspective of somebody else. It is a skill set, and it's built into your brain. The quickest way to be able to use that is to really master the art of listening first. So start by choosing just one conversation today where you listen first and you listen fully, without interrupting, without trying to fix or trying to bring it back to your opinion. Simply listening, really listening to understand versus listening to reply. And that small shift will change how the other person feels, how they respond, how much you understand. And that's exactly where empathy, understanding, lives.
When it comes to someone who may feel like they want more connection, more in-person human connection, what are maybe one or two things that they can do to start down that path again?
I think we have to be very intentional, Megan. I think that if you go out there and say to people, I'm really looking to make friends, to connect, to be closer to my community, to play more of a role in this establishment, when you are intentionally honest about that, I think it's very rare for people to turn around and say, no, thank you, I don't want to offer that back to you. We are a pro-social species. But if we're not good at actually communicating what we need and want, we leave other people guessing. So if you really want to go out there and make more friends, and I know how hard that is, you have to, as I said at the beginning, step out your comfort zone. You can't do that from a Netflix series on the sofa, and go out there intentionally and ask people out for coffee, ask them out to the library, ask them to the book club, whatever it is, and tell them, at this stage in my life, I'm really looking for more friends who share my interest, or people that can discuss, common affairs with me. Are you interested in sharing that? Children do it so well. Children will go in the playground and say, will you be my friend? As adults, we're not so good at it. But I promise you that the minute you step out of that sort of home zone and really intentionally talk about what you need and share that with other people, they will reciprocate.
Is there anything else you can tell us that's coming up in your new book, The Connection Prescription, that will help us and not worry so much maybe about being vulnerable and really communicating what we need for connection?
I think the vulnerability is one of those things that we fear. Back to your very first question around whether fear is really disrupting connection, which I believe it is. I think at the end of the day, if you want to be a citizen of your community, of the world, of the city you live in, if you don't want to be lonely and you want to be connected and you want to be part of something, you have to start listening to other people. Social media will tell us to find our voice and speak up and shout louder. But the reality is, it is the ability to listen better that builds those relationships. And this message is not yet taking as much flight, as it were, as I would hope. So really, I think that's the message for everyone to understand, that people listen to those who listen to them. So if you want to be more connected, if you want to have more influence and impact in your career, in your community, or even at home, it really starts with listening first.
Mimi, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time.
I have loved speaking to you. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
That is author Mimi Nicklin, author of The Connection Prescription, joining us on the Quiver River Electric Guest Line.